They gave Bumpy Johnson 7 days to surrender Harlem, or lose everything. Not just money, not just territory, everything. And what he did next shocked even the men who thought they controlled New York. Stay with me, because later in this story you'll hear the quiet sentence he delivered in a back room that changed the balance of power without raising his voice. In the early 1930s, Harlem wasn't just a neighborhood. It was an engine. Music, culture, cash flow, influence. And in the middle of it stood Ellsworth Bumpy Johnson, a man who understood that power is not about noise. It is about leverage. While other bosses relied on spectacle, Bumpy built something different. He built loyalty. He built a structure. He built a reputation that made people think twice before challenging him. But Harlem did not exist in isolation. Downtown, powerful syndicates were reorganizing the underworld into a national system. Men like Dutch Schultz wanted expansion. Harlem was profitable, and outsiders saw opportunity. To them, it was simple math. To Bumpy, it was sovereignty. The ultimatum arrived quietly. No shouting, no dramatic entrance. Just a message delivered through intermediaries. Cooperate fully or be removed from the equation. 7 days. Most people think fear makes a man react quickly. Bumpy did the opposite. He slowed down. He listened. He watched. Because when someone gives you a deadline, they reveal something important. They need you to respond. And that need is weakness. What happened during those 7 days wasn't chaos. It was a calculation. And by the end of it, Harlem would not belong to the men who thought it was theirs. But before we get there, you need to understand how Bumpy learned to turn pressure into power. Long before the ultimatum, Bumpy studied people more than he studied books. He paid attention to posture, tone, and hesitation. He understood that in negotiations, the loudest voice often holds the least control. Growing up in the shadows of larger systems, he realized early that survival meant mastering psychology. Harlem trusted him not because he was the biggest presence in the room, but because he was the calmest. He remembered names. He remembered favors. He made sure the money flowing through the neighborhood also flowed back into it. That built insulation. It built something outsiders couldn't buy overnight. Loyalty. Meanwhile, Schultz believed expansion required dominance. His operations downtown were efficient, structured, and aggressive in their growth strategy. He viewed Harlem as territory that could be absorbed into a broader machine. From his perspective, resistance was temporary. Everyone eventually complied. But Bumpy didn't operate like a branch office. He operated like a sovereign leader. When the ultimatum reached him, he didn't call a meeting immediately. He didn't rush to negotiate. Instead, he asked one question. Who benefits most if I react emotionally? That question changed everything. During the first 3 days, nothing visible happened. That was intentional. Silence can create more anxiety than confrontation. Schultz's camp expected pushback. They prepared for defiance. What they didn't prepare for was stillness. By day 4, rumors started. Was Bumpy folding? Was Harlem about to change hands? Anxiety spreads quickly in power vacuums, and that was the real test. Could Bumpy maintain confidence inside his own territory while pressure mounted from outside? He did something unexpected. He increased visibility. He walked the streets calmly. He visited businesses. He made small talk. No sign of urgency. The message was subtle. Leadership is steady. But behind that calm surface, alliances were being examined carefully. Harlem's ecosystem was layered. Bankers of the numbers operations, club owners, community leaders, and connections that extended beyond city blocks. Bumpy understood that power was not about standing alone. It was about interdependence. Schultz had muscle and capital. Bumpy had integration. That difference mattered. Around this time, another major figure in organized crime was reshaping the landscape. Lucky Luciano. Unlike older bosses who relied purely on tradition, Luciano believed in structure and negotiation. He saw long-term profit in stability, not chaos. Bumpy recognized this distinction. The ultimatum might have come from Schultz, but the system above Schultz valued order. If Harlem became unstable, profits everywhere would suffer. So instead of responding directly to aggression, Bumpy redirected the conversation upward. Not with threats, with logic. Harlem functioned efficiently under his management. Disturbing that balance would create unnecessary friction. This wasn't a surrender, it was reframing. By day 6, tension was high. Schultz expected submission or defiance. He received neither. Instead, word circulated that a private discussion would occur. No spectacle, no audience. And this is where the story turns. In that quiet room, Bumpy did not argue emotionally. He presented numbers, stability metrics, revenue consistency, community cooperation. He made one point clear: removing him would not increase profits, it would complicate them. Then he delivered the sentence that shifted everything. If Harlem remains stable, everyone earns. If Harlem becomes unstable, everyone pays. That was not a threat. It was a forecast. The brilliance of that statement was that it appealed to self-interest. Schultz sought dominance. Luciano sought structure. Bumpy offered both, without surrendering control. The ultimatum dissolved not because of force, but because of economics. But here's what most people never talk about. Power moments like this don't end tension, they transform it. After that meeting, Bumpy's position strengthened, but so did scrutiny. When you survive a challenge, expectations rise. In the months that followed, Harlem remained under his influence. But he understood something critical. Every victory creates visibility, and visibility attracts new tests. He began diversifying his influence quietly, strengthening relationships beyond Harlem, reinforcing internal discipline, ensuring that loyalty wasn't based on fear, but mutual benefit. Schultz's ambitions didn't disappear, but the larger structure adjusted. Open conflict would damage the ecosystem. Stability won. What can you learn from this? First, deadlines are often leverage attempts. If you react emotionally, you validate the pressure. If you respond strategically, you shift the balance. Second, integration beats intimidation. Bumpy wasn't the biggest force in New York, but he was essential in Harlem. Essential is harder to replace than loud. And third, calm visibility under pressure builds confidence in followers. During those 7 days, Harlem watched him closely. If he panicked, the system would crumble. Because he remained steady, confidence remained intact. But remember what I said at the beginning? That quiet sentence in the back room changed everything. Not because it was dramatic, because it was logical. Logic is harder to argue against than emotion. As years passed, Bumpy's legacy grew. Some saw him as a businessman operating within an underground economy. Others saw him as a community stabilizer within a chaotic system. What is undeniable is this: he understood power as leverage, not noise. And here's the part most viewers miss. The ultimatum was not the most dangerous moment. The most dangerous moment was the silence between day 1 and day 7. Because in that silence, narratives could have formed against him. He controlled that narrative by remaining visible, composed, and strategic. Power is rarely about confrontation. It's about perception. If you enjoyed this deep dive into strategy under pressure, there's more ahead. In our next story, we'll explore the moment when Harlem's stability was tested again from a completely different direction. One that Bumpy couldn't solve with negotiation alone. Because even the calmest leaders face moments when the board changes entirely. And when that happens, strategy must evolve.